I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking. My coffee had gone cold on the desk beside me. The clock on the wall said 2:47 in the morning, and I was sitting alone in my kitchen, staring at a closed computer like it might bite me if I opened it again. 3 weeks ago, I was a completely normal person. I had a job I liked, an apartment I was finally proud of, parents who called every Sunday, a younger brother who still borrowed money and never paid it back, and absolutely zero reasons to question any of it. My life wasn't extraordinary. But it was mine. It was solid. It was real. And then I opened that laptop. My mother called me 4 times before noon the next day. I didn't pick up. My father sent one text, just one, that said, * we need to talk. Please call us. * my brother, who never initiates anything, left a voicemail where I could hear him breathing for 6 full seconds before he hung up without saying a word. And my grandmother, my 74-year-old grandmother who cried at commercials and still sent birthday cards with $10 inside, looked me dead in the eyes 2 days later and said 6 words I will never stop hearing. Your mother never wanted you to know. If you've ever had the ground disappear from under your feet, you know what I felt in that moment. Not falling. Not panic. Just, nothing. Like someone had pressed mute on the entire world. Before I tell you everything that happened, I want you to do something for me. If you're new here and you enjoy real emotional stories that will absolutely wreck you and then put you back together again, subscribe right now. Hit the bell. Because this story is going to take you somewhere you are not prepared for. And I want you here for all of it. Let's go back to the beginning. I was 31 years old when I took the DNA test. 31, living alone for the first time in my life after ending a 4-year relationship, working as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company, and spending most of my weekends either at my parents' house or on the couch watching documentaries. I was stable. Grounded. Completely ordinary in the best possible way. My family was close. I mean genuinely close, not the kind of close where people say they're close but only see each other at Christmas. My parents had been married for 34 years. My dad coached my little league team when I was 8. My mom showed up to every single school event, every recital, every graduation, every terrible performance review when I needed someone to talk me down from quitting a job I actually needed. My brother Marcus was 4 years younger than me, perpetually broke, impossibly charming, and my best friend in the world. My grandfather on my mother's side had just passed away 6 months before all of this started. His name was Edwin. He was a quiet man, the kind of grandfather who didn't say much but when he did speak, you listened. He'd built a modest amount of real estate over his lifetime, and when he passed, there was an inheritance involved. Nothing outrageous. But enough. Enough to matter. The estate was still being settled. The lawyers were still involved. There were documents and signatures and conversations happening in rooms I wasn't always invited into. I didn't think much about any of that at the time. The DNA test was literally a joke. 2 of my coworkers, Priya and James, had both done ancestry tests and they were obsessed. Every other lunch break, they were comparing results. Priya had discovered she had South Asian ancestry she'd never known about. James found out he was 14% Ashkenazi Jewish and had not stopped talking about it. They were relentless. You should do it, Priya told me, sliding a spoonful of yogurt in my direction like that was going to convince me. It's fascinating. You find out where you actually come from. I know where I come from, I said. Everyone thinks that, James said. Nobody actually knows. I ordered the kit that Friday mostly to have something to contribute to the conversation. I spit in the tube, mailed it off, and forgot about it almost immediately. 3 weeks. That was the processing time. I had 17 other things going on and zero reason to be anxious about it. The results arrived on a Tuesday evening. I remember it clearly because I'd just gotten home from a terrible day at work, a shipment had been routed wrong, my manager was not happy, and I'd eaten a sad gas station sandwich at my desk for lunch. I was heating up leftovers when my phone buzzed with an email notification. Your ancestry DNA results are ready. I opened the app right there in the kitchen, still wearing my coat. The ethnicity breakdown loaded first. Mostly what I expected, a mix of results consistent with my family's background. I scrolled through slowly, not really surprised by anything. It felt validating. Ordinary. Exactly the kind of harmless fun Priya had promised me it would be. Then I scrolled to the DNA matches section. The app shows you people who share DNA with you. It organizes them by relationship category. Close family at the top, then first cousins, second cousins, and so on, stretching down into increasingly distant territory. I recognized some names immediately, distant cousins my mom had mentioned at holidays, names that matched faces I vaguely remembered from old family photos. I was about to close the app and finish heating my food when I saw it. Right at the top of my match list. Close family, estimated relationship, half-sibling or parent. The name was Sarah. I had never heard that name in my life. I actually laughed. Out loud. Alone in my kitchen. I genuinely assumed it was a glitch. I thought maybe the app had merged profiles, or there'd been some kind of lab error, or the algorithm was just doing something weird. I screenshot it, sent it to the workgroup chat, and wrote, *, the app gave me a secret sister, lol. This thing is broken. *. Priya responded with about 11 laughing emojis. James wrote back, *, dude what? I went to bed still laughing. I woke up at 3 a.m. not laughing. I don't know what happened in my brain between going to sleep and waking up, but something had been working while I was unconscious. I lay there in the dark and I thought about that match percentage. I opened my phone and looked it up. I read 3 different articles about how DNA matching works, how the percentages are calculated, how the relationship categories are determined. A half-sibling shares roughly 25% of your DNA. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Sarah's percentage put her solidly, undeniably in that range. Not a cousin. Not a second cousin. Not some distant branch of the family tree. The DNA was saying we were immediate family. And I had never heard her name once in my life. I stared at the ceiling until 5 a.m. Then I got up, made coffee, and called my mother. She picked up on the second ring, which surprised me. My mother is not a morning person. Hey, sweetheart. Everything okay? Yeah, I said. I wanted to ask you something. About my DNA test. A pause. Not a long one. Half a second, maybe. But I noticed it. What about it? I got my results last night. And there's a match at the top. Someone named Sarah. The app is saying she's a half-sibling. Another pause. Those tests aren't always accurate, she said. Her voice had changed. I couldn't tell you exactly how, but something had shifted in it. Something had tightened. The article I read said they're actually really reliable, I said. Like, up to 99% for close matches. Well. She stopped. I heard her exhale. I'm sure there's an explanation. Like what? I don't know. Maybe a lab error. Maybe someone else's sample got mixed up. Mom, that's not how it. I have to get your father's breakfast started. Can we talk later? She hung up before I could answer. I sat with my coffee getting cold and thought about that conversation for a long time. I want to pause here because I need you to understand something. Up until this point, I had no real suspicion about anything. I wasn't looking for secrets. I wasn't suspicious of my family. I wasn't some unhappy child searching for an explanation for why I felt different. I had a completely normal, completely loving childhood. My parents were present and warm and good. I didn't feel disconnected or misplaced or like I was missing something. I was just confused. But the way my mother said I'm sure there's an explanation without actually offering one, that planted something. Something small. Something I couldn't ignore. I visited my parents that Saturday. My dad met me at the door. He hugged me the way he always did, that firm, solid, everything is fine hug. But then he stepped back and looked at me with something behind his eyes that I hadn't seen before. Not guilt exactly. More like caution. Like he was measuring me. "Good to see you," he said. "You too, Dad." My mother was in the kitchen. She hugged me too, but it was briefer than usual. She turned back to the counter. Kept her hands busy. I sat down at the kitchen table and I put my phone down in the middle of it. "I want to talk about the DNA thing," I said. My mother didn't turn around. "There's nothing to talk about," she said. "There's clearly something to talk about. You rushed off the phone when I brought it up." "I was busy." "Mom." She turned then. Her jaw was set. Her eyes were doing that thing she does when she's made a decision and she's not going to unmake it no matter what you say. I'd seen that face my whole life. It was the face that ended arguments. "Those tests are not reliable," she said. "People get false matches all the time." I read an article about it. "What article?" "I don't remember. I read it online." "I've been researching this all week," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "The science is really solid. A match that high doesn't happen by accident." My dad, who had been standing in the doorway behind me, suddenly found something extremely interesting to look at in the hallway and quietly disappeared. That was not like him. My dad does not walk away from conversations. He walks toward them. He sits down. He asks questions. He stays. His leaving told me more than anything my mother said. "I'm not trying to start drama," I said. "I just want to understand what the match means." My mother walked to the table and sat down across from me. She folded her hands in front of her. Her knuckles were pale. "Some things," she said slowly, "are better left alone." "Mom." "I mean it." Her voice cracked on the last word. Just slightly. Just enough for me to hear it. "Please. Just let this go." She got up and went back to the counter. I didn't let it go. If you're just joining us, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story is traveling. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because we are nowhere near the hardest part of this. That night I called Marcus. My brother answered with his usual greeting, which was just my name said in a tone of mild accusation. "Hey," I said. "I need to talk to you about something. If it's about the money I owe you." "It's not about money, Marcus. Just listen." I told him about the DNA match. About Sarah. About Mom's reaction. About Dad disappearing into the hallway. I laid it all out. He was quiet for a long time. "What do you think it means?" I asked. "I don't know," he said. "Too fast. Too flat." "Marcus. I genuinely don't know." "But you're not surprised." Silence. "You're not surprised," I said again. Not a question this time. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. "Do you know something?" "Because if you know something and you're not telling me." "I think," he said carefully, the way someone speaks when they're choosing each word like they're picking through broken glass, "that maybe you should talk to Grandma Ruth." He hung up. I called our grandmother 20 minutes later. She picked up, and I could hear immediately from the way she said hello that she'd been waiting for the call. "Tell me about the DNA test," she said before I could even start. "How do you know about that?" "Your mother called me." A long pause. "Come see me tomorrow." My grandmother lived 40 minutes away in the house she'd shared with my grandfather Edwin for over 40 years. It smelled like old books and lavender and the particular dusty warmth of a home that has held decades of life inside it. She made tea without asking if I wanted any and sat across from me in the same chair she'd sat in every time I'd ever visited. She looked tired. Not physically tired. Tired in a deeper place. How much do you know? She asked. Nothing, I said. That's the problem. She wrapped both hands around her mug. She looked out the window at the bird feeder in the back garden. There's a woman named Sarah in my DNA results, I said. The app says she's my half-sibling. Mom won't tell me anything. Dad walked out of the room. Marcus told me to talk to you. And I am sitting here trying very hard not to imagine the worst possible things, and I'd really appreciate it if someone would just be honest with me. My grandmother closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she said, "Your mother never wanted you to know." 6 words. I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. Know what? My voice came out quieter than I intended. She set down her mug. She looked at me with so much sorrow that I almost reached across the table to comfort her, which would have been absurd given the circumstances. You should have heard it from her, my grandmother said. You should have heard it years ago, from her, in the right way. And you didn't. And now, she stopped. Shook her head. Now it's come out the way things always come out when people try too hard to bury them. Grandma. Please. She told me. The story she told me went like this. My mother, when she was 22 years old, became pregnant with twins. She was unmarried, living at home, working a part-time job. The man involved was gone before she even knew she was carrying 2 babies. She was scared and broke and in a family that, at that time, was under enormous financial strain. When the twins were born, a decision was made. A decision my grandmother said she had argued against. A decision she said had haunted her for 3 decades. 1 baby stayed. 1 baby was placed for private adoption, quietly, through a distant relative, with almost no formal documentation and a lot of informal arrangements that, in retrospect, should have raised massive legal red flags but somehow didn't. I was the baby who stayed. Sarah was the baby who left. I sat with that for probably a full minute without speaking. My grandmother didn't fill the silence. She just watched me with those tired eyes and let me process. She gave away my twin sister, I finally said. She was young and scared and she had no money and the family was pressuring her, my grandmother said, and I could hear that she had been defending this to herself for 30 years and had never quite managed to make the defense stick. That doesn't make it right. I know it doesn't make it right. Does Dad know? Your father knew from the beginning. He came into your lives when you were still a baby. Your mother told him before they got serious. And he kept it from me my whole life. He kept it because she asked him to. Marcus? My grandmother hesitated. Marcus found some old papers when he was 19, she said quietly. He came to me. I confirmed it. We agreed not to say anything until your mother was ready. My brother had known for 11 years. My brother, who borrowed my car and ate my leftovers and called me his best friend, had known for 11 years. I stood up from the table. I walked to the window and looked out at the bird feeder. There was a small sparrow on it, pecking methodically at the seed, completely indifferent to the fact that my entire life was restructuring itself around me. I need to contact Sarah, I said. I know, my grandmother said softly. Before I tell you what happened when I reached out to Sarah, I need you to do something. Like this video right now. I know that sounds like a small thing, but it actually tells me whether to keep making these kinds of stories, and I have so many more to tell you. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment. I want to hear from you. I found Sarah through the DNA app's messaging feature. I sat with my phone for probably an hour, writing and deleting different versions of the message. Everything I wrote sounded wrong. Too casual, too dramatic, too clinical, too emotional. Eventually I just wrote the truth as simply as I could. Hi Sarah. My name is Jamie. I think you already know why I'm reaching out. I've just been told something significant about both of our lives, and I would really like to talk to you if you're open to it. She responded in 4 minutes. Asterisk, I've been waiting for this message for a long time. Yes. I'm open to it. When can you call? Asterisk. We talked for 3 hours. Her voice was, there's no other way to describe it, familiar. Like a song you haven't heard in years but your body already knows the words to. She had the same cadence I had. The same habit of trailing off at the ends of sentences and then starting again. The same laugh, which we discovered by accident and which made us both go completely silent for a moment. She told me her story. She'd grown up in a loving adoptive family 3 states away. She'd had a good childhood, she said, genuinely good. She wanted to make sure I understood she wasn't trying to claim trauma she didn't have. But she'd always known she was adopted, and she'd always felt the specific particular ache of a question she couldn't answer. Where did she come from? Who did she look like? Was there someone out there walking around with her eyes? She'd registered on 3 different DNA sites. She'd been searching actively for 2 years. I'd almost given up, she told me. I almost took my profile down last month. I uploaded mine 3 weeks ago, I said. I almost didn't do it at all. We both sat with that for a moment. Then she said, I have something I want to show you. Can we video call? We switched to video. And I looked at my sister's face for the first time. It was like looking into a slightly different version of a mirror. The same bone structure. The same eyes, that specific shade that people in our family had always described as not quite brown and not quite green. The same way she held her head slightly tilted when she was thinking. She had a dimple on the left side when she smiled that I had on my right. Oh, she said when she saw me. Yeah, I said. We were both crying before we even realized we'd started. After we composed ourselves enough to speak again, she said, I want to show you something. She held up a photograph. It was a printed photo, slightly faded, the kind of photograph that was taken before phone cameras. It showed a young woman in a hospital bed. She was exhausted and beautiful and smiling at something off camera. And I knew her face immediately. It was my mother. But younger. 22 years old, maybe. No lines around her eyes yet. Different hair. But unmistakably, completely, without any question at all, my mother. Where did you get this? I whispered. It was in the folder my adoptive parents were given when the adoption was arranged, Sarah said. They kept everything. They always said if I ever wanted to search, I should have everything they had. That's her, I said. That's my mother. Sarah nodded slowly. That's what I thought when I saw your profile photo. I don't know how long we stared at each other through our phone screens. At some point I became aware that it had gotten dark outside. I'd been sitting in the same chair for hours without noticing. What do we do now? Sarah asked. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But I want to figure it out together. If that's okay with you. I've been waiting my whole life for someone to say that to me, she said. Over the following week, Sarah and I compared everything we had. Hospital records, adoption papers, the photograph, the DNA results, dates and documents and anything else we could find. And as we laid everything out side by side, something started to bother us. The dates. My birth certificate said one thing. The hospital paperwork Sarah had said something slightly different. Not drastically different, not years apart. Just a few weeks. But when you're piecing together what's supposed to be a straightforward story of twins separated at birth, a few weeks is a crack in the foundation. And that crack started to grow. Sarah's adoption paperwork listed a different doctor than the one on my birth certificate. The hospital listed on her documents was not the hospital my mother had always told me I was born in. Small details. Easy to dismiss individually. Impossible to ignore together. I went back to my grandmother. I sat down across from her with my laptop open and everything printed out on paper and I laid it in front of her. There are inconsistencies, I said. She looked at the papers. And the expression that crossed her face was not confusion. It was recognition. And then it was something that looked, terrifyingly, like relief. Like someone who has been holding something unbearable for a very long time and has finally been given permission to set it down. Grandma. My voice came out very careful. Very slow. Is there something else? She reached over and closed my laptop very gently, the way you close a door you're not ready to walk through. Then she folded her hands. And she was quiet for so long that I started to feel genuinely afraid. I'm 74 years old, she finally said. And I have been carrying this for 31 years. And I am so tired. She looked up at me. I'm so tired of carrying it. Then put it down, I said. Just tell me. Whatever it is. She looked out the window. Then she told me the rest of it. If you need to take a breath, take it now. Because what my grandmother told me next is the part that broke everything. My mother had not given birth to twins. My mother had not given birth at all. There was a young woman. My grandmother described her as a girl, really, 19 years old, no family support, in a desperate situation. She came into contact with my family through a connection I won't name to protect people who are still living. This young woman was pregnant. Not with one baby. With two. She died shortly after the birth. My grandmother said it was a complication, something that today, with modern medicine, would have been caught and treated. In the circumstances this young woman was in, it wasn't. She died. And she left behind two newborn babies and no one to claim them. My grandmother told me that it was Edwin, my grandfather, who made the decision. He arranged for my mother, who was at a period of her life where she was struggling and needed something to anchor herself to take one of the babies. He arranged for a relative on the extended family side to take the other. He had the paperwork altered. He had the birth certificates redrawn. He had the story constructed, the story about my mother's pregnancy, the story about financial hardship, the story about a difficult decision to separate twins. All of it was a cover. A more palatable cover for the actual truth. My mother had raised me my entire life as her own child. She was not my biological mother. Neither my grandfather's family nor I shared a single strand of biological DNA. I sat across from my grandmother in that lavender-scented living room and I felt absolutely nothing for the first 30 seconds. Then I felt everything at once, which is almost worse. Who was she? I asked. My voice sounded strange to me. Hollow. The woman who actually gave birth to us. Her name was Caroline, my grandmother said. She said it simply, the way you say the name of someone you've thought about for years. There was grief in it. Old, worn grief. Did she have family? Are there people? I don't know how many people are still living. Your grandfather handled all of it. I only knew what he told me. And the inheritance? I heard myself say it before I had consciously decided to ask. But I knew. I think I'd known since Marcus said to talk to Grandma. I think something had been assembling itself in my brain without my permission. My grandmother's hands tightened in her lap. Your grandfather's estate. The real estate, the assets, there was a clause. In the original family trust. If Edwin died without direct biological heirs, the estate would be handled differently. There were relatives, distant ones, people he hadn't spoken to in years, who would have had a claim. He needed children to protect the inheritance, I said flatly. She didn't say yes. She didn't have to. Who else knew? I asked. Your mother. Your father, to the extent that, she stopped. He knew you were adopted. He didn't know all the details of how the adoption happened. He was kept somewhat in the dark about the legal aspects. The family lawyers? A pause. Some of them. Yes. Marcus? He found the adoption papers. He didn't find the rest of it. No one told him about Caroline. I stood up. The grandfather I've been grieving for 6 months, I said slowly. He built this entire thing. He falsified documents. He took 2 babies from a dead woman. He used us to protect his assets. And everybody, you, my mother, the lawyers, everybody let it happen. My grandmother didn't look away from me. I respected her for that. I know, she said. You could have told me. At any point in 31 years. I know. You watched me cry at his funeral. I know. Her voice broke completely on that one. Just collapsed. I know. And there is not a single day that she stopped. She pressed her fingers against her mouth. She collected herself. I cannot undo what was done. I can only tell you the truth right now, today. And I am telling it to you. All of it. Whatever you decide to do with it. I drove home from my grandmother's house in a kind of dissociated haze. I don't really remember the drive. I remember parking and sitting in my car outside my apartment building and calling Sarah. She answered immediately. Tell me, she said, because she knew from my voice that there was more. So I told her everything my grandmother had just told me. On the other end of the phone, there was a long, long silence. Then Sarah said, very quietly, so we never really knew where we came from. Not even the story we thought we knew. No, I said. Caroline, she said. Testing the name. Hearing it out loud for the first time. Caroline, I said back. We stayed on the phone for another hour without really saying anything meaningful. Just existing in the same space, which felt like the most important thing we could do for each other right then. I want to stop here and talk to you for a second. If you've made it this far, you are exactly who I make these stories for. Drop a comment right now. Tell me where you're watching from, tell me if you've ever had a family secret blow up your life, tell me literally anything, I read every single one. And if you're watching this and you haven't liked the video yet, please do that right now. It genuinely matters more than you know. Before the week was over, my grandfather's secret gave us one more thing. Sarah had gotten in touch with the estate lawyers, just asking general questions, being careful, not revealing what we knew. And one of them, a younger associate who'd only joined the firm recently and had no idea what she was sitting on, mentioned almost in passing that there had been a letter left by Edwin, with instructions that it was to be given to his grandchildren after his death. Somehow, in the chaos of the estate being settled, it had been overlooked. Or maybe not overlooked. Maybe certain people had known about it and chosen not to surface it. The lawyer sent it to me by courier 3 days later. It was handwritten. 3 pages, in my grandfather's careful, controlled cursive. I recognized his handwriting from birthday cards he'd sent me every year of my life. I sat at my kitchen table and I read it twice before I called Sarah and read it to her out loud. He wrote that he had known, for most of his life, that what he'd done would eventually surface. He wrote that he'd convinced himself it was for the right reasons, giving 2 children a stable home, protecting the family legacy, honoring Caroline in the only way he knew how, by making sure her daughters were cared for. He wrote Caroline's full name. He wrote her parents' names. He wrote the name of the town she'd grown up in. He wrote everything he knew about her history, her family, the circumstances of her life, and where her people might still be found. And at the very end of the letter, in handwriting that looked shakier than the rest of it, like maybe he'd had to stop and come back to finish it, he wrote. Asterisk, I do not ask for forgiveness. I know what I did and what I allowed. I only ask that you know I loved you. Both of you. Whatever that is worth from a man who made the choices I made. The truth will find its way to you because truth always does. I hoped I would be alive to give it to you myself. I'm sorry that I'm not. Look for Caroline's family. You have people in this world you've never met. I hope you find them. Asterisk. One day the truth will find you. Sarah flew in 2 months later. We met in person for the first time at the airport, which is a completely absurd place for one of the most important moments of your life, but life doesn't care about your settings. I saw her coming through the arrivals gate and my brain did that thing it had done on the video call, that immediate, cellular recognition. She walked exactly like I walked. She was scanning the crowd the same way I was scanning it, with that slightly anxious, slightly hopeful expression that I'd seen on my own face in every nervous photograph ever taken of me. And then she saw me. We stood about 10 feet apart for one moment that felt like it lasted an entire year. Then she crossed the distance and hugged me, and I held on to my twin sister for the first time in 31 years, and neither of us said anything at all for a very long time. What happened after that was complicated in every direction. My mother and I had a conversation that I would describe as the hardest of my life. She sat across from me at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd slammed the laptop shut months earlier, and she cried in a way I had never seen her cry before. Not the controlled, dignified emotion of a woman who has her feelings organized. Ugly, broken crying. The kind that comes from a place that's been sealed off for too long. I love you, she said, more than once. I have always loved you. Please believe that. I do believe that, I told her. And I meant it. Whatever else was true, I believed that. I should have told you, she said. I know. I know I should have told you. Why didn't you? She looked at her hands for a long time. Because I was afraid that if you knew I wasn't really your mother, you'd stop letting me be. That broke something open in me that I'm still not done processing. My father, my dad, the man who coached my little league team and drove 4 hours to help me move into my first apartment and has never once in my life made me feel like I was anything less than completely his, came over the next day. He sat down across from me and he didn't try to explain or defend or reframe anything. He just said, I should have pushed your mother to tell you. That's on me. I knew and I let it stay buried because it was easier and because I was selfish. And I'm sorry. And then he said something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. DNA doesn't make someone a dad. You know that. You've always known that. But I understand if you need time to decide what I am to you now. I'll be here regardless. I called him the next morning. We're okay. We're going to be okay. Marcus came over without being asked, showed up at my door with takeout and 2 beers, sat on my couch, and said, I should have told you when I found out. I was 19 and scared and I thought I was protecting Mom. I was wrong. You were 19, I said. I was still wrong. Yeah, I said. You were. But okay. We're also okay. The inheritance situation is still being untangled by lawyers who are now in possession of significantly more information than they were previously. The family trust that Edwin built, the assets he'd spent decades protecting with his elaborate construction of lies, all of it is now subject to questions that the lawyers say could take a long time to resolve. Sarah and I are both involved in that process, which is strange and bureaucratic and deeply, absurdly strange. We reached out to Caroline's family. Her parents are gone. But she had a sister. Her sister is in her late 60s. She has photographs of Caroline. She has stories about her. She cried on the phone for 20 minutes when Sarah reached out to her for the first time, and then she said, I always wondered what happened to those babies. I always wondered if they were okay. We told her we were okay. We told her we'd found each other. She said, Caroline would have wanted that. She would have wanted you to find each other. I took a DNA test because my coworkers were comparing ancestry results. Because I wanted something to contribute to the conversation at lunch. Because I was mildly curious and it seemed like a fun, harmless thing to do on a Friday evening when I had nothing better going on. What I found was a twin sister I never knew I had. What I found was a woman named Caroline who gave birth to us and died and never got to know us. If you made it to the end of this story, I want you to know that genuinely means something to me. These stories take real work and real heart to put together, and knowing that you stayed until the end, that matters. Drop a comment and tell me, if you were in my position, would you forgive your mother? Would you walk away? Would you do what I'm doing, which is taking it one day at a time and trying to hold on to what was real even while rebuilding the rest of it? I read every comment. Every one. Tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing where in the world this story is landing. Like the video if it hit you the way I hope it did. Subscribe if you're not already here, because I have more stories to tell and I want to tell them to you. I'll see you in the next one.